Rennie Good was a gifted soul, a writer and a poet and a mother, wow. She tried to hit an agent with her car, oh no! Pop, motherfucker, now she's gone! Yeah, yeah, yeah! Being a fucking liberal is a mental disease. Blue-haired unfuckables with the septum ring. You are not a hero, you're a fucking disease! You fuck around and find out it's what it is! Jeffrey Pretty was a Jewish homo. Started talking shit to protect a chomo. He was getting nicked when he pulled a gun. Bam, motherfucker, now you're gone! Yeah, yeah, yeah! Being a fucking liberal is a mental disease. Blue-haired unfuckables with the septum ring. You are not a hero, you're a fucking disease. Fuck around and find out what that is.
Hey guys, welcome to the program. Do me a finger, would you please? Would you raise that finger and share this program, please? We're going to talk about some things going on in Arizona. You may have been following the news. And I'm going to give you a little bit of flavor of background and insight and everything that's going on to keep you the most informed patriot in the room. By the way, today's program is brought to you by the fine folks at Goldco. Here's what I'm asking you to do. Go to jovanlovesgold.com, request your free gold and silver kit today, because now is the time to protect your money with gold and silver. Please do. You got to get serious about this, folks. Something's coming, and they're going to swap over digital. I can see it happening across the country. More places are not taking cash anymore. And remember, if you have money stored back in your little coffee cans or whatever, if they go digital, they basically would have the ability to say that money's no good anymore. Pay attention, folks. It's coming. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Maricopa. Is Hobbs going to be finally in handcuffs? Has the Maricopa legal madness begun? It'd be a great gift, wouldn't it? By the way, speaking of a gift, it's that time of year, and you need to think about this time. You put it off 1 year, you put it off 2 years, you keep on putting it off, where you take control of your food destiny. You got to get self-sufficient, folks. I'm telling you. We did a phenomenal book, became a bestseller, Food Force Bible, How to Create a Food Force, Sustainable Self-Managing Natural Production for Self-Sufficiency and Food Security. It's a hell of a book. Make sure it has my name on it. A lot of people copied it and put out junk. That's why I'll never do an ebook again. Nowadays, you can, get the cheaper ebook, crack it open, do your own, and people try to sell you a clone, crappy version. Get to working on it. And by the way, you can do the same thing for fruit trees. Tiny yard, want to grow fruit? How about giant fruit in super small spaces? I teach you how to do it. And even if you don't want to garden by digging and weeding, there's a way to do that too. But whatever way it is, as we all cut this crap, you've got to CYA. Okay, we're going to get started. But before we get started, I want to share something with you. Well, I'll share it right when we come into the program. So 3 minutes, we'll get started.
Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. The historic Maricopa County full forensic audit effort processed 20,895,610 digital and forensic images of varying formats, resulted in 208 million individual evidence-proof files. The system processed over 58 billion forensic measurements, resulting in over 2 trillion individual base computations. No hopium, no hype, just hardcore forensic evidence. Please make sure the Maricopa County Full Forensic Audit Archives survive. Donate now. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence.
Warning. The following program has been rated Gilligaff and is intended for open-minded audiences. If the truth offends you, or if you are allergic to focused intensity, intellectual athleticism, or the occasional F-bomb or even irreverent humor, please switch off now. If your delicate sensibilities need to be worried about or addressed, might we recommend the Underwater Basket Weaving channel to you? Otherwise, sit back, enjoy the wisdom, insight, and wicked sense of humor.
Cut the crap. How many times a day do you want to say that to politicians? The elite, the loony liberals, the fake news media, and the gender-confused, emotional socialist snowflake crowd. Cut the crap is your secret weapon for fighting for our freedoms and our great republic. It all begins with a massive mental enema, freeing you from the toxic news and politically correct views, which constipate your consciousness with stinking thinking. Your host, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. He's known for calling out politicians and telling them to cut the crap. You've seen him on virtually every television network and listened to him on Coast to Coast Radio. And now he's here to help you learn to fight for America. Culture, race, and American politics. They all have one thing in common. They all need to cut the crap. Now, here's your host, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer.
Okay, folks, you might have noticed in news headlines going all over social media that we're about to head to ballot wars all over again. It started with some news stories which we're going to cover, and President Trump putting out great FBI secretly seizes election records from Arizona's largest county as voting probe expands. But then, of course, the typical characters in Arizona, like Garrett Archer, the data guru, who will not face me no matter what. And again, I would remind you of this fellow. Prior to the 2020 election, for some reason, Maricopa County decided to hire a data election guru. Nobody else in the country has their election guy who has really done, some peripheral things about elections. But Arizona did a year plus out. I say that's a good indication of what they knew was coming, and they needed somebody who could focus on it and push back he does. He will not face me. He's supposed to be an expert. You would think experts would talk to other experts, and let's just have a discussion. You show what you've got, I'll show you what I've got, and one of us may walk away crying. But then again, it's live, and people will see the truth. And myself, remember, I used to do Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS, etc. In the news world, if you're not like me, an independent and an expert, and you're a news reader, you get told what to say, and you don't get to be creative, and you dare not do anything live that will get you caught. Well, he won't do it, but he does do his job, because he immediately posted, "I can confirm the FBI has not raided or seized anything from Maricopa's County Election Department. As of right now, John Solomon report is either a full-throated," interesting use of words, I think it comes from personal experience, "full-throated lie, or something having to do with the recorder's office, which handles voter registration data." Okay. Let's see if I can share with you. I think I'll get it right here. Let's see if I can share with you what Maricopa came out and said first. Let me see if I've got my sound on. I do. And let's go here, and then I'll play it for you. Here's the kind of news story that ran around Maricopa.
Nicole, the DOJ is making a concerted effort to look back at that 2020 election and find some fraud. Now, here in Arizona, that election has already been audited, canvassed, and studied and by Republicans and Democrats, and nobody found really any evidence of wrongdoing. So today, Arizona's Attorney General Chris Mays issued a statement in reaction to this latest action by the FBI, saying what the Trump administration appears to be pursuing now is not a legitimate law enforcement inquiry. It is the weaponization of federal law enforcement in service of crackpots and lies. The election material the FBI is looking for was actually destroyed years ago under normal procedures called for by Arizona law. But after the 2020 election, the Arizona Senate took custody of all of the Maricopa County ballots and election computers. The FBI is now asking the Senate for those records that they still have from that audit that came under a lot of controversy. Now, that audit was run by an organization called the Cyber Ninjas. And right away, we found that their security was non-existent. We're able to wander around day after day after day with nobody even asking us what we're doing. We pretty much have free reign through the building. We were able to get right up next to all of these boxes of ballots and the computers that were out there. Nobody ever challenged us. And so what that shows is that the ballots and the computer systems haven't been secured since that election. And, that might cause a problem if the FBI is going to look to see what is actually there. Now, that Arizona Senate audit incidentally found and concluded that Joe Biden won the election here in 2020 by more votes than initial original tally. Nicole, Jared, back to you guys.
Morgan, we reported just the other day how the county recorder, Justin Heap, made this claim that there were at least 60 illegal immigrants who had voted in previous elections. Do you think that there's any?
Anyway, you notice, and I just want to point out how news works, because it's not true. When you see him walking around, the security area, the area upstairs was for the reporters. They sat in the bleachers, right? That's from Arizona. That's Arizona locally. That's where they could go to the bathroom walking down those hallways. 4 levels up. And then when he does show the photo looking down the causeway where you see a security guard, people, and fences, but yet he comes back and says, we got right there where those boxes and computers were. Go back and watch it. You'll see a lot of how this bullshittyism is played out. Okay? But you also need to understand that ever since the Arizona audit started, we had saboteurs on the inside, and people were letting reporters in and doing things designed to do news stories. You heard him say that Republicans and Democrats investigated it. No, they didn't. Arizona completely forbid any Democratic help. I designed it to be equal Democrats, Republicans, independents, and people who hadn't voted. It's not the way the system wanted to let it go out. But what you saw in that story was something that was intentionally spun to basically be a lie. Well, right now, the system is in all turmoil. The very first thing I want to say to you, the world cannot back away that all of their numbers were lies. And it was a joke. But what's appropriate here is I want to tell you, you are the reason that 5 years later, this is even a topic again, that the government's even involved again, that it's even being looked at. I want you to understand the role you played in history. All of you, way back when I agreed, I was solicited to do the Arizona audit. I wasn't offered to do the Arizona. I didn't call and offer myself to do the Arizona audit. I got called and said, hey, what you're talking about, can you do, and can we do it for this audit? That's how I got involved. When we knew they were going to play games, I decided I was not going to play games, withdrew my services. And then which they thought it was great. But then I told them, look, I'm going to tell the public this bullshit you're trying, because I'm not going to stand for it, because you said you go through every single ballot. I told you, you rose to the occasion. 60,000 plus of you called, hammered, email, and got it done. So I want you to understand, for those of you that called, participated, shared back then, you're the reason that it even got done in the first place. If you, the people, would have not voiced your effort and support, it would have never been done. They would have never allowed it. If I would have just said, okay, well, let's look at a few and then I'll see what I can do, it would have never happened, because we already know you can't find it in a few. So from the very beginning, it was plagued where they just never wanted it really to be looked at. But you made it happen. Next, I want to thank every single one of you that gave of your time there in Arizona to sit and look at every one of these ballots, to go through the process I designed where everybody's on the floor and all the colors and how you do it and how we manage this, all in the middle of a pandemic. But we got it done. You participated in a monumental piece of history, which has never been done before, and more than likely will never be done again. You have to understand how monumental this work was, of 2.1 million general election ballots, the biggest event ever in an election when it came to looking at the data, facts, and figures, was hanging chads. And that was a few 10,000s of ballots. So I want to thank every one of you that gave of your time away from family, jobs, used your vacation time, put yourself in harm's way, walking past protesters every day, having a system that wanted to dox you and harass you. I want to say God bless you for stepping up for the United States of America. Next, all of you that have followed this program as we've been going through this process, it is you who kept the pressure up. It is you that informed the general public. It is you that carried the message and understand how it really worked. And you have a far better education than any single lawmaker I know in elections. You did it. You guys are what kept in all of this going. You guys are what kept all of this even now moving forward to the point that we could even get to this point. Then every one of you who have actively and are still contributing to our Give, Send, Go, because remember, as independent auditors, we have to keep it sacred. It can't be merged with government stuff. It doesn't work that way. I want to thank every one of you that care enough about this battle to fight it, because I'm telling you, when it comes to the midterms, all hell's going to break loose. And America, once again, will be in the hands of the people, where you can say, look, I helped defend and fight America and make sure this saw the light of day. So with that said, before anything else, I just wanted to say thank you to every one of you who participated all along this way. It's been a hard, crappy battle. It is not over. And whether you believe it or not, it's going to get worse. But that's the nature of the beast when it's backed against the wall. And it knows it's going down. Now, with that said, I want to show you what it means to stick at it, what it means to keep working at it and perfect it. And here's a good little father-daughter. I'm going to use it as a mouthwash before we get into this dirty stuff that shows keep working at it, keep working at it, keep working at it, never give up, and how much it pays off. I hope you enjoy this.
Number.
How do you know the song? What?
Yeah, but that was a long time ago, Daddy. I need some like more music. Do it for me. Oh, what's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken?
Is that not cute? And she's talented, and she's got it. She's got it from the beginning, and she's stuck with it. But listen to that voice. Anyway, it gives me chills. What a loving moment. And that's why I wanted to say I love you for sticking with this, right? And now we're going to get to the nastiness. Here's where the story kind of went out. Here's what's going on.
The FBI has decided that the history of Maricopa County is problematic, and that under federal law, a county or a state must administer the election the way their state laws do require it. If they don't, it is a federal legal violation. This is why they raided Fulton County, another place with a long history of irregularities and misconduct, and quite frankly, just incompetent election counting. And so the focus in this grand jury subpoena that went in the last few days to Maricopa County, seized many gigabytes of election data, is the 2024 election, which is interesting because President Trump won there. But there is a discovery that was made by congressional observers. Every year, the House Administration Committee sends observers, one Democrat, one Republican, to various voting centers. One of the teams, the Republican-Democrat team that went to Maricopa County, observed something very disturbing. They took pictures. They wrote a long report. Congressman Abe Hamadeh hinted at this in an oversight letter recently. The information in that report was so troubling to the FBI, and when coupled to the things that the Arizona Senate found in 2020 that were raised as concerns, and the things that Hamadeh and Kerry Lake raised in 2022, they were able to get a grand jury subpoena from a federal grand jury and execute the transmission of a large amount of voter data. They're going to go through that data, looking for some of the telltale signs that were in this congressional report. I hope in the next couple of days to make that congressional report public so everybody can see what it was that observers on Brian Stiles' House Administration Committee saw. Brian Stiles himself acknowledged that they were working with federal authorities on this specific Arizona matter. So you got Congress working with the FBI. And I think this is phase 2 of about a 5-phase look at states, particularly blue states or blue areas of states, where elections are not administered the way the law says they're supposed to be. And as a result, the FBI may come in and prosecute people because it is a federal felony if you don't follow your state's laws, if you don't treat everybody the same under your state laws.
Okay, well, you know all of this, and we've been saying it for a very, 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 very long time. And this is different than a strongly worded letter. And you heard key 14th Amendment, and you've seen all of our 14th Amendment work. And we taught you early on that it's not about the machines at all. It's about were the elections run right? Therefore, you're just looking to see if it's maladministration. And if that maladministration has a pattern that's repeatable and widespread, then it jumps to malfeasance. And when you really look at malfeasance, you can eventually find fraud, right? With that said, and it doesn't matter that the election is voluntary, because once you cast your vote, which you voluntarily did, then it's basically becomes a binding document, a binding contract. The rules are voluntary, which I have an issue with, etc. But in active investigations, you don't talk about things that would jeopardize the investigation in any way. Okay? In any way. So that's the first thing. A lot of people coming out, you're going to hear a tremendous amount of reports about what this is, what this isn't, whatever. You're going to see the left and the deep state pushing back, etc. But you don't inform, aid, and abet the enemy. So you got to be careful about what you do or you don't say. And ironically, so many people are involved at different levels doing different things. It's almost impossible to confirm any one thing. And by the way, that's the way it should be. With that said, I do agree with John. There are multi levels of tactics and investigations and information and evidence out there, right? What is very important in any of this process is to show that this was not a boo-boo and wasn't just an anomaly. I want to make sure you understand that. Over the years, you have learned the way the laws are written, they're able to say that's just a boo-boo. Was an accident, meaning didn't mean it. However, with 2020, you're going to find the system is going to claim it was new territory, volunteer and employee fatigue and stress, almost like a PTSD event. Get ready. That's what you're going to hear. And I'll explain how that works. You're going to find when you get into a lot of these procedures that weren't administered correctly, you're going to find a new type of quote unquote legal excuse emerge. And the legal excuse that is going to emerge, and mark it down, look at your phone, your computer, the time, the day, whatever the case may be, because I'm telling you here, I've always told you in advance, you're going to see them begin to claim that the rules were only modified due to a national pandemic. And since the pandemic required fast response and modification, that they had to deal with something that the system, counties, municipalities, states, etc., weren't used to dealing with. And because they had to take in consideration social distancing, they could possibly die if they caught something, it put undue pressure and stress on the system. Therefore, that duress caused a new type of mistake, which was not intentional to occur. Write that down. Now, with that said, that makes the verification, the unequivocal verification with absolute integrity that, well, that doesn't apply. It wasn't the pandemic. And by the way, this is not only widespread, it is a audible, repeatable pattern over numerous election cycles. So you have the cycles coming in, no pandemic. Here it is, pandemic. You have the cycles post-pandemic, even though the pandemic was officially over. So a whole new line of data is going to come out in response to how they're going to try to defend themselves against this. It's not defendable, and the evidence is against them. What's going to be important is to always put it in the context of the system did this. Here's how it affected the voters. Let's go back and look at some of the things that those of you, just a few, because there were 1,000 plus, noticed that, and this is what you were looking for. You'll notice it in the words people use. This is what our team trained the world to look at, to use, to understand when it came to the physical ballots. But let's do this little flashback.
We noticed that we're not organic.
The bubbles being filled in absolutely perfect.
Was obviously not done by a human hand. As though they were printed.
A human being didn't do that.
Ballots that were, that weren't lined up. The bullseye didn't line up.
That target should have been in that bullseye.
The crosshairs would be here, and sometimes the mark would be over here.
The volunteers stop and look at a ballot. The paper was very, very thin.
The paper was really thin. I mean, because when they moved it, it's almost like it's just really thin. It looks like someone had stained the ballots on purpose.
At times, there were more than 50% of the ballot that was gone. Sometimes it was only like 25% of a ballot was there. It was very peculiar.
There were large pieces torn off of the ballots.
When a ballot is soiled, damaged, or otherwise marked and shifts into adjudication, the startling thing to point out is another human being is now determining your intent. They have now effectively voted for you.
Okay. Again, the stuff you know and you learned, and why is this important? Remember, Maricopa is unique. It's almost exclusively mail-in ballot voting. The pandemic did more, but when you take what the county said, it's this specific paper, it's the only paper we use, and everybody gets mailed a ballot, then we know a few things. It's the right paper, which is a very thick paper. What she was talking about, we taught everybody to do what's called read the curl. So when you grab the hold of an end of the ballot like this at the middle at the bottom, it'll have a curved structure like this. It'll be rigid, right? It'll stick out. And that's how that paper is made to run through the system immediately. If it's a cheap paper, run-of-the-mill paper where somebody duplicated it, then the curl flops. So instead of being kind of like this U shape where you can hold like this and the paper's stiff and long, here you go, the paper curls limp over. It's amazing how many people learned some really interesting forensic techniques as we did this, and you're going to find out soon how important it is, right? Why is this important when you heard that ovals were filled in with machines, et cetera, et cetera? Because remember, there were certain audits that said Dominion changed the vote, it was the machines. That's never an audit, and that's never allowed by court because you made a predeterminate. You said it was Dominion who did it, and you said it was the machines that did it. It was always planned to fail. In a forensic audit, you don't know what you're dealing with. You set up procedures. You look at everything. You look at what every official said, what every official reported, and what every official certified. And then you only measure against that. It either is or it isn't. That's an audit. That's forensics. They either did kill the person or did not kill the person. It's that simple. And so in the fact that they said, well, everybody got a ballot and it was predominantly mail-in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then you know the propensity of ballots is going to be on that paper they said they used, which is highly identified, that it's going to be voted by hand, not a machine, because it's a mail-in ballot. And then it's going to have those folds there. Now, why all of this is important, and I'll just use one as an example. This is District 1. They should have had 84.13% folded ballots or a little bit less, but it should never exceed. Okay? They had 76.24%. Now, ironically, none of them hit in the 80 percentile. So that's a red flag right there that we should have 84.1% basically across the board. Nobody hit it. So we're saying, look, there's not folded, so it's not a mail-in ballot. If you go to the other column, hand-folded basically means it was printed at the precinct level for a walk-in. That was printed flat, and the person creased it with their own hands and dropped it in a box. Well, they should not have any more. It should not exceed 7.53%. But you see every one of them busted that wide open and went way over it. And then no fold is election day ballots, which are flat, right? And should have no folds, etc. And they all should have human, filled in ovals. It should not exceed 8.34. And you see they busted that wide open too. Basically what you see is everything they failed with on machine folding, trying to claim they were really mail-in ballots, they made up by stuffing in later on under a different type and process. And this is forensics. Bottom line is they're caught red-handed. This is what happens when you do forensics and you do forensics right, of what you're looking for and what you're going to catch. Now we're going to go back historically. I'm going to show you some of the things they hid, how they did it, and how it's going to apply in the coming year. I'm going to take a 50-second break. Hang tight.
Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. The historic Maricopa County full forensic audit effort processed 20,895,610 digital and forensic images of varying formats, resulted in 208 million individual evidence-proof files. The system processed over 58 billion forensic measurements, resulting in over 2 trillion individual base computations. No hopium, no hype, just hardcore forensic evidence. Please make sure the Maricopa County Full Forensic Audit Archives survive. Donate now. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. We can't do it without you. We need you. America needs you. Our future needs you. Please donate now.
Sorry about that. Sometimes nature calls. I have to run real quick. Hang on. Takes a while to roll back up. Anyway, I just had to take a break. Let me show you some of this stuff where you go back in history that I want you to remember all of the things that we were battling at the time.
Findings that I had. Number one is that there were a series of ballots that I examined the photographs of, and Dominion, as the election subcontractor, produced ballots for each of the zones or districts that were involved, at least in the area that I looked at here in Maricopa County. And there were 5,000 approximately, a little over, different ballots. As you know, in a state there could be 2 different senator races, there could be 10 different House races, and all the permutations and combinations is what gives you the 5,000. So they create a final ballot for each one of these districts or zones or regions, so that when you go in and you give your name and it knows you're from this area, you would get this ballot to vote on all the issues that pertain to you, and only the issues that pertain to you. And I found that there were about 25,000 ballots that were not printed from the official Dominion PDF ballot. In other words, the printing process, appearance is completely different than what you would get from a first-generation PDF printing. As you can imagine, the lines are perfect. So they're perfectly straight, no breaks in them, the circles or ovals as they may be, and they're a solid line. When I examined some of the early voting ballots and election day ballots from various polling locations, there were about 25,000 that did not have printing from this perfect PDF, as you would expect, but instead had breaks in all the same places around an oval. So you can look at one of the ovals and there are imperfections in the line, and they're in the same place on every single one of these ballots.
These 25,000 unidentifiable ballots alone represent over double the amount of Joe Biden's 10,457 vote margin.
Okay, so I showed you that with Mr. Spakeen so you can remember it. Remember, forensics should always cross-prove everything. They should cross-verify everything. So Mr. Spakeen looked at some of the images we had. Remember, we did them all in high def. It's the only proper chain of custody there that are still held. And what he looked at, which we knew about, was how these ovals were broken, and you saw those gaps in there. Now, the way forensic works, you can take a forensic expert, will look at it and go, well, these ovals should be perfect lines, and they're not. And they got broken lines. And then the broken lines repeat in patterns and do it multiple times. And what you heard was, okay, there were over, 25,000 of them. To play it back to you a different way is on our side about the target, where you see the targeting, the little target out of sight. We can tell you on our side exactly how many different printers were used to print that compromised ballot. Now, remember, ballots get sent out to the precincts as a PDF, and it should print it true to the PDF, but there were errors, issues, and like you said, it kind of looks like a low-grade copy. Well, we can actually tell you the printer and then identify where the printer was located. And how did the printer affect so many counties? Because it's interesting. It's not in a bunch where they just went. It's systematic over all precincts. And so we have of that. But more importantly, what you need to understand is early votes. Early votes, when you look at the early voting, mail-in ballot voting, you're going to find out that which was shown on the screen, the ballot is not only printed with the right color, because it has color anchors in it, but it's printed on a specific Runbeck machine. Now, we worked with HP. There's a code that HP uses to manage the ink. You ever wonder, how does your printer know you only have this much yellow left, or this much blue left, or this much black left? Well, it's interesting. The way your print management system detects that is by looking at a weeping yellow dot that's about the size of a blood cell, and it's in yellow. And you can't see it with the human eye, but that's with us. With forensics, we can see it. And so that was one of the things we went to the next level is, okay, if these are in fact compromised ballots, and they were supposed to come from Runbeck, and so they should be on the Runbeck systems. I will tell you that our numbers relatively match between what Mr. Spakeen did and what we identified as they said it was an official ballot, when in fact it's not. It's a duplicate, not of their systems, and doesn't have stochastic mix, machine inserted color, not machine inserted code. They don't have the stochastic pixels, so we know that this wasn't off, quote unquote, the official Runbeck machine. And that's how forensics should work back and forth. And that's kind of why you have to look at the paper. Let's look at some of the other issues that were going on at the time.
The key fraud is the mail-in ballot. That was the backup in case they fell too far behind. That's why they cut off the vote at midnight, 1 o'clock, when President Trump was getting too far ahead.
We're informed of evidence from the 2020 election about the drop boxes that Maricopa, for example, Maricopa County said that they had over 923,000 ballots that were dropped off of the drop boxes. However, documentation can only account for 189,167 ballots, which means that there's a deficit of 733,000 ballots. That's right, over 733,000 ballots are unaccounted for.
The Wednesday before the Friday that we quit voting, so 10 days before they quit tabulating, they thought they were done. And then more truckloads of ballots would come in, and I'm like, how can you not know how many ballots are still out there?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Would you repeat that?
Yeah.
They thought they were done.
They thought they were done
and then
multiple times.
There was what?
Multiple times. The people that were running the rooms thought they were done or almost done or were going to be done Wednesday morning, then Thursday morning, then Friday morning. Then it went on the whole next week. And I'm like, I asked the question, I'm like, you don't know how many ballots are still left to come in? So I don't know who does, again, process project management.
I kept looking at the screen because it seemed very odd. And in the bottom right-hand corner was a yellow banner. And I got into a position where I could see the yellow banner, which said low confidence. Then I started paying much closer attention to the signatures, thinking this didn't even make sense to me because the signature on the ballot that was being compared to other signatures didn't even resemble in any way what they were comparing it to. They were completely illegible. They were just scribbles on the ballot. And there were 5 screeners screening low confidence ballots for an entire afternoon that I was in there. And I asked Celia what the low confidence said, and she said just not to worry about that. That this was a new program that they were testing.
So what have we learned? We learned that the big lie is that this was a secure election. I'm sorry, it was not a safe and secure election. We have so many problems with our process that need to be followed through, and laws need to be adhered to and complied with. All of this evidence has been turned over to the Attorney General. Oh, and by the way, every Democrat voted no in committee.
They cut off the vote, they turned things off, they chased everybody out, and then it's not your concern except for the fact that you got to look at this somewhat in total. They started bringing in false ballots. We have 3 witnesses to 100,000 of those ballots being brought in at 4:30 in the morning in Detroit with no Republicans around that they knew of. Luckily, we had 2 that stayed behind and a Dominion employee who was willing to be honest. Not all of them are honest.
Okay, you heard many things. Only the last part was about Detroit. The first part was about Maricopa. And you heard, we thought we were done. We thought we were done, and ballots kept on coming in. I would remind you, we pointed that out, that the little bit of the chart on the left is all the ballots coming in early vote. The dotted line in the center is election day. They said they were overwhelmed, but yet instead of using 10 machines and full staff, they use two tally machines. And it was very low numbers. And so what were they doing? Well, a month later, that's why everybody was surprised it was supposed to be done. Just on the days December 8th and 9th alone, they ran in 118,019 ballots. Yeah. And so that's why, and they come out of nowhere. But that also matches the fact that they've got to make up differences, and that's why those came out of nowhere were primarily no folders. And that's the category that blew through the roof, which you can see. Now, of course, I battled this both in Georgia, Fulton County, Georgia, and in Maricopa. The Republicans made sure we didn't get the full forensic audit in Fulton County, Georgia. So we are at a deficit, even though things have been seized, even though somebody in the FBI tipped them off and they took out some boxes. It's good, right? But it's not as effective as, what we have with all the evidence in Maricopa from all different sources and all kinds. Another little piece here of what was going on, if you remember, is we weren't getting all the information we were supposed to get. The county officials were playing games. Here's a little news clip from then.
And Maricopa County officials, they're refusing to turn over routers or router images to the election auditors. They're defying a judge's orders. What are they afraid of and what are they hiding?
That's a question for them.
Right.
We wonder the same things, but I'm not going to comment on what's going on in their heads. So that was part of the subpoena as well. And at first they told us that they had replaced all of that equipment and were going to provide that equipment to the Senate, and that they had put all new equipment in the McTech facility. And then when that didn't show up, they started talking about providing virtual access. And then after a week or 2 weeks almost of trying to get the virtual access, they now are coming up with this concern that it puts other agencies of the county or even federal governments at risk if they provide that information. So I'm not an IT expert. We'll let the auditors and their IT experts work that out in conjunction with the Senate and the county.
Mm-hmm. And then one last question. Yesterday, Breitbart pointed out that Hannah Klein, the daughter of Biden's chief of staff, Ron Klain, Hannah Klain, signed the document going to the DOJ on behalf of the Brennan Center for Justice. Why do you think Biden's team is getting involved in the fight to stop this? What is Joe Biden hiding?
I wasn't aware of that connection, so I don't have a comment about whether President Biden is hiding something in this process or not. So,
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so you'll remember there was an issue and it came down to the wire. Many times subpoenas ignored, they wouldn't do things. And then it came down to the county officials are literally going to be handcuffed and perp walked to the jail. You might remember that. And that's what it took for them to hand over the information. I cannot even put into great words, significant or adequate words of how much sabotage, deep statism, all kinds of underhanded things were just being done nonstop. And I'll give you an example. Ken Bennett, who you just saw. Ken Bennett is the former Secretary of State of Arizona. He's what's called part of the Mormon Mafia. That's just what they call themselves as well. But Ken Bennett was not selected to participate in this. Ken Bennett begged Karen Fann to be involved. He could be spokesperson. He could be whatever. I mean, he begged Karen Fann until she finally relented and let him in. And then it was Bennett who let Randy Pullen in. People, again, that should have never been associated with the audit. Ken Bennett, him as the spokesperson, was, right, the person who was letting in the liberal press to get through the barriers that made us look like we had no security. That was Ken Bennett. It was Ken Bennett who was the leak that kept on leaking information and setting up the audit. Now, Maricopa rewarded him. He's a senator now. He got rewarded. He got elevated up, put back into politics. But that's Ken Bennett. But that's how the systems played. Now, I'm going to play another piece for you. I'll probably stop it when you hear a certain thing, and then I'll come back and play the rest. But Ken Bennett is the one. I do not know how it happened other than they planned it. But Ken Bennett was the one that when the final report came out, basically said the most important thing we found in the audit was the numbers were relatively the same, but Joe Biden had more votes. That was all set up bullshit from the beginning. And that's why they had him in. But I want to remind you of a few things. Now, one thing I should remind you of, this issue of the router and Splunk logs. We wrote a book called Countdown to Chaos, The Silent Federalizing of Elections. Remember, we don't have federal elections. We have state elections, state by state, that have a federal component. I am not for federalizing elections. I would be more than happy to make state elections be separate and federal elections to be separate. And they're 2 different days, 2 different things. I'm totally for that. But to have one government entity at the national level be over all state and everything, I think that's a recipe for disaster. However, we put out a book, even I put out a book called Countdown to Chaos, Silent Federalizing of Our Elections. What this has to do with is everything that led up to 2020. You got to understand, this was planned for a long time. It was not spontaneous. It was a plan from inside the United States. And when you understand that they were refusing to turn over the Splunk logs, which I'll talk about in a minute, this book explains exactly why that was needed and what they did. This book explains why, what I told you, they put our elections under critical infrastructure. They did it back when they were screaming Russia, 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 and they put it under critical infrastructure. They did that so they had a legal excuse to see everything, which I'll explain in a moment. Let's go back to this little bit cross-examination of Mr. Bennett here.
Direct a few of these questions. I'm going to ask the Arizona folks here these questions. So I'll start with Mr. Bennett, and then we'll try to work on down so everybody can get there. Is it standard practice to delete files off a server after an election, Mr. Bennett?
I hope not.
So, Mr. Gates, will you agree with that?
I would say that it is appropriate to maintain files, and that's exactly what we did. We deleted the deleted files that have been discussed. They were archived.
So you admit that you guys did delete, Maricopa County did delete files off the server after the election?
That are archived.
Yeah, and so when you released these servers and this information to the auditors to begin with, they didn't have access to those archived files at first. Is that fair to say?
They did not subpoena those. That's correct.
Okay, so you didn't feel obligated to turn that over then to them?
We responded to the subpoena.
Okay. Mr. Bennett, your response to that?
I find it, frankly, laughable to suggest that a county, in response to a subpoena, could say we will delete files from the hard drives and materials that we give to the auditors because we have those files archived on data that we did not give to the auditors when the subpoena said turn over all the records related to the election.
Yeah, see, that's the way I read the subpoena. It was more broadly.
Okay. I want to highlight one point here because this is important. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors in this that I've continually pointed out. I did it in Carrie Lake's case when the county brought in a special judge to look at the printers. Remember, there was an issue with 19-inch versus 20-inch printers. And they brought in a judge to test the printers. You know, she's highfalutin, whatever, test the printers. And she put back a report that, well, the printers print it right. We didn't get any of these errors. Once I got that report, we were able to go back, and I was able to look at the printers that were tested. And I pointed out those were not the printers used. Here's how this rig works. Let's just say Maricopa has 2,000 printers, because they got 749 precincts. They got 2,000 printers. They always have a reserve of printers held behind in case anything happens. But they're all designated, in this case, to use, in Kerry's case, for the 2022 election. And so you had all these issues. This is my issue with people who don't understand forensics, or people who are only avocational, or really don't understand technology and research, all of a sudden being experts at it. Here comes this report from a well-respected former justice in Arizona saying, well, we didn't find anything. Here's what they did. When she comes in with her team to test the printers they were given were printers they didn't use. I'm sure you can see the fallacy of that. See, those printers are in backup, and all of those printers were perfect. And so you come in and they make it look like they randomly, well, let's pull a few printers, here you go. They know exactly what they're pulling out. And those printers, although they were designated to be used for the 2020 election, were not or 2022 for Kerry, were not actually the printers that got deployed. They were the backup printers, and of course they were bang on, and they're always going to be bang on. That is how they play this game. It's why we have 1,675 boxes of ballots in Maricopa, and only 52 of them were sealed by law. The rest were in total disarray and unsealed. But if you look at the numbers, the 52 were perfect. The remaining 1,625 were all disarray and bullshit. And those 52 were handpicked the night of the election, that in case if they get audited, we'll look at these. But when it comes back later, because they're from all spot areas, they go, well, let's just pull a box from each one. That box had already been pre-decided. They leave nothing to chance in this. Now, the reason all of this matters, so I do some connective piece for you. To get the routers and Splunk logs, we're able to see who is doing what inside the election database from where and at what time. I'll say that again. The Splunk logs and all of that information is what enables you to determine from where did this person enter the system, the database for the election, and where was their system, what was the route. It's kind of the trafficking instructions so you can understand it. Well, those were never, ever, ever turned over, ever. Karen Fan hired a military team all after the fact to come in, and they would look for the Splunk logs. And that military team, ironic, came back and said, well, there never were any. There are no Splunk logs, which is bullshit because you can't do it without it. Now, what they did is they placed, for the first time in history, the election servers in with the sheriff's department, which is, we told you in the book how they did it, how they watched all of this. That's what Countdown to Chaos is. By it being in the sheriff's department, it took it out of the county recorder's office, and the sheriff's able to protect it, saying, well, if we give you access, you're going to see other cases, you're going to see other investigations, which you saw earlier. That was the ruse they did it in. Let me tell you exactly what the net effect of this was. We're trying to get all these drives. I'm getting all the ballot images and telemetry and stuff, and we couldn't get this one drive. I've told you about it before. It was Election Day drive. They basically claimed it was missing. It looked like it was deleted. And in fact, in the records, it was deleted. Again, as we have smoking guns and we're fighting and Karen Fann has to issue another subpoena, they're told turn it over or else. And they eventually do cough up a drive. Their excuse, and you'll hear it as I replay his testimony, we didn't delete them, we archived them. Listen to the word he focused on. We didn't delete them, we archived them. We archived them. Now, they claimed they needed to archive them because they needed this space. But when you looked at the drive, there were all this old election stuff in it. I'll show you what that little trick did. As I showed you, a month later, remember, Maricopa County certified the election November 20th. November 30th, Katie Hobbs and Ducey certified the election, that it was done, it was good. By the way, they never had those numbers then. The number they ended up for the election never existed. And to this day, they still don't have the number. That's how bad it is. However, what they were hiding was the day that the Election Assistance Commission, that it has to be certified at that level, they ran in 118,019 ballots. Now, why does that matter? Well, it's more than a month after the election. Why were they doing this? Well, long story short, on the drive, it wasn't in the right format. It wasn't even the right folder system. I mean, it was completely in disarray. And their lie was, and he said, well, you didn't ask for archive. We complied with this subpoena. It says, give us all your election drives. Well, by them taking it off and putting an archive, because archive wasn't mentioned, they said, well, we complied with it. What they really did, and I'll show you this, you'll see it right off the bat. The top image you see is pretty close to 1.9 million ballots if we round up. And you see those little arrows at the top, that points the day, date, where, when, how, etc. that the ballot comes from. Now, I did that red bar on there to draw your attention to the spacing. See that margin that's out there? Well, all of those ballots and subsequent ballots that came in, those 118,000, look at it on the bottom. The reason the type's bigger is because they zoomed out the margin so they could cut off the header so you could never tell where it was really coming from. So you could never tell on what day it was done. But we actually caught what day it was done. It was done in December. But this is how they tried to hide it. By the way, that alone is 165,000 individual state and federal class felonies, each one. And that's just on the electronic side. That has nothing to do. It's another 165,000 felonies on the state and federal side for the paper. That's why I had to look at everything, folks. And I know I took a lot of flack. Jovan's trying to kill the audit. He said he's not going to do it. The reason I said I wasn't going to do it, because I wasn't going to let them hand me 5,000 ballots to look at and think I know what's going on. And my deal was, you hand them all fucking over, or I'm not doing it. I played their game. They thought I was out. And then you pushed them and said, bullshit, we're doing them all. And you made it happen. This is what they were hiding. So you got 118,019. We cut it off. It still went on. 118,019 felonies right here that they covered up, which is in excess of 160, that they covered up, cut, modified, intentionally gave drives, etc. The felonies run so deep on this, it's nuts. That's why the no folds are in excessive. We should only have 8.3% of folded ballots. But the reason they're so big is because they're backstuffing nonstop, and they can never put those official mail-in folded creases in them. This is why they don't want you to see it. Now, I've taught hard on pay attention to the words. Mr. Gates is the supervisor there. Listen now, he says, we complied with the subpoena. They did it by doing a move, saying they archived it. Now listen to the discussion with what you know they were really hiding.
Direct a few of these questions. I'm going to ask the Arizona folks here these questions. So I'll start with Mr. Bennett, and then we'll try to work on down so everybody can get there. Is it standard practice to delete files off a server after an election, Mr. Bennett?
I hope not.
So, Mr. Gates, will you agree with that?
I would say that it is appropriate to maintain files, and that's exactly what we did. We deleted the deleted files that have been discussed. They were archived.
So you admit that you guys did delete, Maricopa County did delete files off the server after the election?
That are archived.
Yeah, and so when you released these servers and this information to the auditors to begin with, they didn't have access to those archived files at first. Is that fair to say?
They did not subpoena those. That's correct.
Okay, so you didn't feel obligated to turn that over then to them?
We responded to the subpoena.
Okay. Mr. Bennett, your response to that?
I find it, frankly, laughable to suggest that a county, in response to a subpoena, could say we will delete files from the hard drives and materials that we give to the auditors because we have those files archived on data that we did not give to the auditors when the subpoena said turn over all the records related to the election.
Yeah, see, that's the way I read the subpoena. It was read more broadly than the county read it. So, so your Twitter account mentions that the purging of the 2020 election database in the beginning of February is a standard practice. Can you please confirm for me that that's what you do for all elections? After all elections, that you do that?
I cannot confirm that for you today, but we can certainly get you that answer, Congressman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you confirm that today or not?
I really can't confirm that either today. I just know that because there is limited space on these servers, when you have to run another election, then you have to make room for the additional election data.
So was there additional? Was there still? Well, let me just rephrase this. If that is the standard practice, which is kind of, I don't think you guys are saying that you know for sure, but the chairman just intimated that that's the case. Can you explain to me why data was still present for prior elections on the databases in and of itself?
Yeah, again, I don't have an answer to that question, but we'll certainly get you an answer for it, Congressman.
Okay. All right. I would appreciate if you would give me that information.
And I do think that it's important that our recorder has suggested that he will be answering every question in a timely fashion.
That's the same recorder that campaigned that Adrian Fontes was incompetent and called him a criminal. And he was the guy that was running the 2020 election, and you actually hired someone to oversee Mr. Fontes because you guys didn't trust Mr. Fontes as well. Is that the same guy? Is that the same Stephen Richard?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it. I would.
Idiots are in abundance in this. Rusty, the old man who looked lost, had previously just been in China just before the election. Interesting. Their excuse was they needed space on the server, but when we finally got the drive, it had all these other elections and bullshit on it. But I want to let you know, this was known over 5 years ago. We've told you. We've shared it with you. That was why there was so much bullshit in it, is because I'm the only one in my contract with the Senate, because I pioneered new auditing techniques that had never been done before to detect these things, to equate them and have the paper speak. They couldn't shut me up on the findings because we own it. And I knew that would be the case in the fight. All that was left was all the discrediting they did. But I want you to think about now, as this comes down right now, I want you to think about how many conservative broadcasters told you there was no forensic audit. It was a grift. There was no kinematics. There wasn't a report. I want you to think about how many people that are supposed conservative podcasters fighting this fight told you that. And the same people that told you, no, it's the machines, it's the machines. Don't you find it interesting in the raids or whatever that nobody's gathering up machines? So this has been a long, hard fight. So now with my recap, let's get to now what's coming to light and what may be in store.
Nothing short of a blockbuster story on Just the News. I think you broke overnight. Maricopa County. Now, you've been at the tip of the spear of allowing us to understand the overall framing of what's happening in Georgia. And we've had tons of the local people who have been fighting the fight in Georgia. Maricopa, and as Georgia is the key that probably picks the lock today because people stood in the breach and go, everybody remembers back from that night that it was really Arizona and the call by Fox News that kind of seemed like a domino effect and really disoriented many, many, many people who were not just Fox fans, but obviously Trump supporters. And we've never really gotten steady on that. So go through what your story says today, because I think this is so important. I wanted to lead with it this morning, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So Maricopa County has had more than a decade of long-term problems. Back in the early 2000s, it was the Democrats who always cried foul that Maricopa County couldn't count votes correctly, couldn't administer the election correctly. Then in 2024, Republicans raised the same curtains and Democrats suddenly went into a state of denial. The FBI has decided that the history of Maricopa County is problematic and that under federal law, a county or a state must administer the election the way their state laws do require it. If they don't, it is a federal legal violation. This is why they raided Fulton County, another place with a long history of irregularities and misconduct and, quite frankly, just incompetent election counting. And so the focus in this grand jury subpoena that went in the last few days to Maricopa County, seized many gigabytes of election data, is the 2024 election, which is interesting because President Trump won there. But there is a discovery that was made by congressional observers. Every year, the House Administration Committee sends observers, one Democrat, one Republican, to various voting centers. One of the teams, the Republican-Democrat team that went to Maricopa County, observed something very disturbing. They took pictures. They wrote a long report. Congressman Abe Hamadeh hinted at this in an oversight letter recently. The information in that report was so troubling to the FBI, and when coupled to the things that the Arizona Senate found in 2020 that were raised as concerns and the things that Hamadeh and Kerry Lake raised in 2022, they were able to get a grand jury subpoena from a federal grand jury and execute the transmission of a large amount of voter data. They're going to go through that data looking for some of the telltale signs that were in this congressional report. I hope in the next couple of days to make that congressional report public so everybody can see what it was that observers on Brian Stiles' House Administration Committee saw. Brian Stiles himself acknowledged that they were working with federal authorities on this specific Arizona matter. So you got Congress working with the FBI. And I think this is phase 2 of about a 5-phase look at states, particularly blue states or blue areas of states, where elections are not administered the way the law says they're supposed to be. And as a result, the FBI may come in and prosecute people because it is a federal felony if you don't follow your state's laws, if you don't treat everybody the same under your state law. So that's where we're at today. Now, over the next 10 days, Steve, we're going to have a lot more. We are going to be able to get, for the first time, I've been able to start processing these documents, large body of evidence that's in the intelligence community that raises concerns about foreign interference in our elections. That'll probably be the end of this week or early next week. The documents are explosive. They're really remarkable. And what's most remarkable is that all this has been kept a secret from the American people, possibly President Trump in some cases, until recently, of course, when his team told him. I think there's a lot there. And then in between those two things, we're going to reveal another code-named FBI investigation that targeted President Trump, one you've never heard of before, one that may be among the most troubling. We have Crossfire Hurricane, of course. We've got Plasmic Echo, and we have the third one that targeted the January 6th investigation, Arctic Frost. There's another one that is really deeply troubling. It's troubling to the FBI. It's troubling to the intelligence community. And hopefully between now and next week, we'll get all four of those stories out.
Okay. There was a tremendous amount of pressure to discredit the full forensic audit. And if some of you are new and haven't seen some of these things, let me just show you a few clips. Here's some of how it's computer vision, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Computer vision simply means the cameras, and that's why we had them at high def. Remember, we have all of this on perfect chain of custody and can recreate the entire election, and you can look at the physical ballots and their forensic clones. Let me show you how some of this works. This particular one, I don't know it. I'll have to let it run here. But what we're able to do, when you see the codings, we're able to look at every single ballot, and we set different things out so we can track these and see these. If you can, the code on your screen, I can tell you down to the audit who touched it. I can not only tell you what ballot, what batch, and everything else, but can tell you who actually touched the ballot at the audit level, right? And so when you understand the zooming here, see the blue dots on the right? Those are the machine inserted color, stochastic pixels. You'll see it when it zooms up, right? But this is how forensics runs, right? We're looking at these things. Now that's a little bitty speck on the ballot, but you see how even the system we can zoom it way up, even to count the fiber count in the actual ballot. You saw it there on the screen. Let me see if I can, I don't think I can stop it there on the screen, but you'll notice that when you see a fold, when it comes up, see, that's not folded. If you look at the top oval left, not folded, top oval left, that was a black and white one. Let's see if we get one that's folded here. Not folded. Okay, let's see if we can get one that's got a fold. I'll point it out real quick. You'll be looking top left. Well, that's okay. I'll show you in this next one. This is forensics. I'll show you another little bit when we look at the paper and we identify these things. Here's another piece. I'll describe it as we
start making a mental map, right? A mental map, okay, of what you're looking at.
See, we're actually looking at everything at super high def. You even begin to see the ones that were printed by machines. They stick out sorely, right?
That's a pencil. That's what a pencil looks like.
We know it's a pencil because you can see the tiny fibers stirred up.
Sharpie. Rorschach patch. I have no idea what the hell they did there. You can see the oval underneath it. I have no idea how it loaded like this, but we have no idea how it was managed to skip that. When you see these are batch markers in between. So don't necessarily worry about those. Now in a minute, I'm going to get to more interesting ones for you. And yes, the machines can read in pencil and can vote in a pencil. I think somebody actually wrote their initials in this one. Now, they may have thought that was creative, but it could actually mess up their vote, right? Etc. Yeah, if you were thinking about the calibration marks, look at the bottom. We can use the calibration marks moving fast to determine, where the position is. Again, somebody like this, marking like this, not even realizing it could cancel their vote. This one here is machine inserted. Double X. I guess that's an X-rated vote for Biden there. People do all kinds of interesting things.
Anyway, so that's forensics. And there's many things going on in those pictures. Is it color? Is it the right place? Is the fold in the right place? Was the oval machine inserted? Which it shouldn't be on a mail-in ballot. It should never be machine inserted, right? There's no excuse, no reason that mail-in ballot would have a machine inserted oval. So this is why we did it. Folks, just so you know, we got a $210,000 contract to do the full forensic audit and to develop all these technologies. We spent $3.5 million doing it, and we still spend money on it today because the investigation's ongoing, and we keep it open. And by the way, J-Lo, thank you so very much for never giving up on this and for your donation. It all goes towards election integrity. Every bit of it is what keeps these archives going and keeps them, et cetera. And yeah, that clip was turned up to like 2x speed or whatever. That wasn't Mr. Shapiro discussing my work. Anyway, now let me tell you why I even show that. Because you got to understand all of this in perspective. And then I'm going to tell you what's going to happen with all of this. First off, you have to understand the system knew early on, we caught them hands down. They absolutely knew that we had found it, we had seen it, and we discovered all the different ways they did it. That's why they had to keep everybody away from the paper. So what they did is they began a campaign to discredit me, a campaign to discredit our team, all planned because what they needed to do was not have people pay attention. So they had to create as much doubts as they are. I'm going to play a clip for you. This is Mike Lindell's second-hand man, you know, doing Frank's speech and getting them public and everything else. And ironically, he's used this to now I understand he's in the race to be Colorado governor, just like Mike Lindell is in the race to be Minnesota's governors. But here's the tactic they used to plant a seed that an audit and none of this forensic work was ever done.
So here's the thing. I want to point this out. For those of you that are Jovan fans, be a Jovan fan, right? But that clown got out there and said, oh, it's nothing going to happen. We have the secret bullet. Do you remember this before? Have you heard this before, Apollo?
Yeah, yes.
Don't worry, we're working on it. Then somebody sent me a video of him stealing the Erickson report, parts from the Erickson report, and publishing it as if it was his data.
What?
And then he didn't take a call from Michael. Canceled a meeting he had with Michael. Oh, yeah. You didn't hear about this?
No, what?
So then he's bad-mouthing me for being out here. And I was like, where's Joe? He's going to save us. We trust Jovan working with these people. Let me explain something to you. Jovan could go sit on a stick, a jagged stick. He'd go sit on it, right? The guy literally doesn't know anything about technology. You want to take this back? You want to talk about this kinematic audit? He didn't do a kinematic audit. He didn't produce a report. He didn't do jack squat. And for all the...
And so that was kind of the first wave of campaigns that they do, is to try to discredit. Don't think this is only left. It's the right as well. By the way, again, J-Lo, thank you very much for that generous tip. It all supports our work. Mims Max, you too. Thank you so very much. Thank you for doing it again. Thank you. Anyway, that's Joe Altman now running for Colorado governor. Just like Mike Lindell's running for Minnesota governor, even though he told you had the PCAPs melt down the machines and the machines did the swapping of the votes or whatever. I think Lindell's actually in third place, but there's only 3 candidates. In Colorado, I think they have either 45 or 47 candidates running. I think Altman's number 44 last time I looked. But the system elevates these people. Now, that's how they work on the populace. Don't look, it was never done. It's crap. It's whatever. And all behind the scenes, they tell this to lawmakers. On the lawmaker side, now understand right now what our government's doing is all the suits and everything that President Trump has underway to get the voter rolls and everything else, because they now know this is where it is, right? But the system fights the whole time. They want you to focus on the machines. They don't want you to focus on the voter rolls. So here again is Mike Lindell's second in command for his field operations, not the TV stuff. Here's Mike Lindell's getting him in front of all lawmakers, and here's what his team told lawmakers to forget about.
So you have a centralized statewide voter roll that's on networked machines, servers. It has a public-facing internet interface. That's it. That's all I need to know that it's blown. That's a centralized statewide voter roll that was mandated by Help America Vote Act. They have these all over the country. And it's not just that you have a public-facing internet interface to it, but multiple organizations have what's called an API, or an application programming interface. In other words, a machine-to-machine interface into that voter roll. And I'm telling you this because when people say, well, we have to clean up the voter rolls, it's true that they're not following the law. It's true that they're not in good faith maintaining them in accordance with Title 52 that requires that the voter rolls be both secure and accurate. That's a requirement imposed on the secretaries of state who've received the Help America Voting Act and CARES Act funding to maintain those voting systems. What nobody's going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you, is you cannot clean those rolls. You're sweeping a dirt floor.
And so, although he's an expert on all things blown, he's not an expert on elections. You saw him kind of pop up mysteriously with Tina Peters, who was flown in with Mike Lindell for the Cyber Symposium CP caps, but it became the Tina Peters show, and that's her sidekick explaining how it works. Anyway, that's how they work on the elector side. All those guys are grift. They never did it. Oh, don't worry about the voter rolls or whatever. It's the machines. Well, what they kept everybody away from, and you've got to see this, okay? What they kept everybody away from is we're going to get clobbered in this midterms. Actual numbers. Obama had 69 million votes in his 2008 election. His next term was 65. Hillary got 65 going head to head with Trump, and then we get that FU finger 81, Joe Biden. Close of election night, Kamala had 68. This is a May 21 report. It's even bigger. Even today, a year and 3 months after the election, Kamala's now been raised to over 75 million votes. Basically wanting the world to believe she's more popular than Hillary. Hey, you check on your own. All you do is type into any search browser the final election results for the 2020 general election. Look at it. Look at it. They add him in the backside, pun intended, because they're trying to make what they pulled off with Biden legitimate, so they keep them voting in these shorter elections going back. And they're over 75 million. All of that's done because they stuck them on the voter rolls. And now they legitimize them. Yet Mike Lindell paid for. By the way, you paid. You donated. You paid for all of that work that put Tina Peters in prison because there was no polynomial bullshit. All of those guys that came in using fake names and fake stuff. Oh, we released it online, but Tina goes to prison for it. You paid for every bit of that. You paid through pillows and donations for every bit of that. You paid for them to put people on the road to 745 cities saying it was the machines, don't do the voter rolls. You paid for that. And while everybody was distracted by the damn machines, when you can see people actually do this, not machines, look what they did with Kamala underline. Got her up to over 75 million votes. That's the game, folks. You only look at it as Pelosi's and Schumer's and all that other stuff. It's a game. It's a racket. It's both sides. So what will happen here in Maricopa? This is really interesting. It's really a very hard push-pull battle. There's a lot I cannot tell you about. Right? There's a lot I can't tell you about. Peaches. God bless you, Peaches. It's very funny. There's a contest started on donations by Mr. Hader. And by the way, Peaches, thank you so very much. I love peaches. Peaches taste great. I love good peaches. Peaches, $100. Thank you so very much. I think they're trying to get it up to $420. That's very funny. Anyway, God bless you. God bless you, every one of you. It all goes to make sure we get this fixed. But anyway, the system's known this. If you go back in the timeline and you started watching when we got the full forensic audit and what's going on, the moment they knew we were going to focus on the ballots and it was beginning to show the incriminating stuff, which show you how many leaks we have behind scenes because I'm updating teams and it got through. Magically, we have this cyber symposium of PCAPs and it drowned everything out. That's how the system plays. But the only thing that moves the system is when you get involved. You moved and you made this Arizona audit happen. Now, what do we know? I can tell you that at the White House level and other levels, it is a freaking war. There's three things going on. Okay? And by the way, Mr. Hader, thank you very much. We reached 420, yeah. Anyway, he said you need pass the puff. Enjoy, guys. It's paper too, roll it. Anyway, there are a few battles going on. Obviously, one battle is the Uniparty. I'm going to call Deep State and Uniparty one thing because it is, okay? It is just one thing. Bingo! Thank you again. Thank you so very much, guys, for being very generous with those tips. It all goes to all of this evidence, right? Making sure it gets saved. And that's the key. And this is what I want to explain the process. There is the deep state and the system. They're always going to do what they're always going to do. There is also the GOP that never wants this to see the light of day and to get fixed because the GMP uses the same loopholes that the Dems do. Nobody in system wants this fixed. But they've got to convince you they're doing something. So that's one of the battles going on. The next battle that's going on is people like the fellow I showed you in Oklahoma who wanted to impale me on a stick. And then Mike, they're now using the platforms to run for governorship. You're going to see them later on. You're probably going to see them later on. They'll be elevated to politicians because they're playing the game. So there's that. There are also in the system the really bad actors that are in between the left and the right that pay to do these psychological warfares and to keep everything in absolute chaos and turmoil. They want to keep you in chaos and turmoil. That's why I say always just focus on the actual evidence. It's right before your eyes. You can see it, and you know where they're headed with this stuff. That's why we've always taught you. The reason they don't want you to go after the voter rolls is because when you go to voter rolls and you look at DMV and it drops it right to the voter roll, right? It's the Dem states that use it and the Republican states they're trying to take over that drop them right from voter registration down to the voter rolls, right? And then if you look at the states that don't allow it, you find a very interesting feature. What is that feature you find when states do not allow motor voter? You find we're a red country. By the way, Penny, God bless you. Wow. A $500 tip. God bless you. 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 I would kiss you. I would squeeze you. I'd rub you. I'd give you the tongue. I don't care, whatever it is. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you for all your support. It all goes to keep this evidence pristine. But think about it. Michael Liddell puts people on the road and in front of every lawmaker saying, don't worry about the voter rolls. It's crap. It's crap. It's whatever. Look at this. The states that use that motor voter hook to put every one of those illegals on, right, is blue. And the states they're fighting for to take over and make sure they permanently control are red. And they're going to win them. But if you look at the states that do not allow motor voter drop, there you go. The facts have always been here. You got to understand, folks, there is no left and there is no right. There is no Democrats versus Republicans. It's absolute bullshit. I did back in 2020 set out never be a Republican again or call myself a Republican. I'm an independent. James Wood just did it, says, I'm tired of this shit. You got Thune not putting through the SAFE Act. It's all bullshit, folks. Playing with our lives. Playing with our lives. Because we're the damn battery units. We're what drives this engine. One of these, I stepped up for Mike Lindell to when he got kicked out of the stores and stuff, and I feel like a sucker because everything he touched pushed everything away from true election integrity. I feel like a sucker. And I feel even more like a sucker. A pillow salesman on an infomercial somehow became the expert. And even I question that, all the money and whatever. It's a con. Now, I know we're in trouble. And we're in trouble at the midterms, folks. And we've got to get this right. All of the evidence is there. All the evidence is there that would lead to prosecutions. Now, the question is, what do we get fixed? And how do we get it fixed? Personally, I think if we focus on the machines and it was Venezuela, we're not going to get shit. I don't buy it. And even if it was Venezuela, what happens in Venezuela stays in Venezuela and can't be prosecuted in the United States of America. So frankly, who gives a shit? This is the United States of America. I care about what happened in the United States of America. And the law says you fuck with the paper. That's a felony. Fuck with the machine. It's a boo-boo first. And if you really do convict it, it's $1,000 misdemeanor fine. If they would have got nailed for deleting those, we'll call it 1 million votes or whatever in Maricopa, based on, oops, we accidentally deleted it, it would have been $1,000 misdemeanor fine. But what we know we're looking at is hundreds of thousands of fraud, true fraud, by racketeering, felony at the state and federal level. I personally think when I look back, now I watch, I'm seeing it go on when you see Bannon kind of come on under, right? Big Nads, computer show with Jovan, Net Talk Live. Net Talk Live, all one word, Net Talk Live. Anyway, we're so far behind this 8 ball because it's all corrupted. I rose to the occasion to just do what was right for my country. People could see it. We could see the folds. They called for it. We get it done. But it really is a system that we're not in. We don't realize the power we have to control it, but we only control it if we speak up. We only control it if we keep repeating the truth. And we only control it if we beat down the crap that people sell. Fucking melt them on the prison bars. You got to stick to the law. You got to present prosecutable evidence. That's the way it works. Honestly, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know the timeline. You're seeing it now because so many you're reading about the subpoenas, which weren't raids, and you're reading about the raids in Georgia, which was a raid, because this war is ongoing. Is anything possibly going to get solved on this before the midterms? I doubt it. I doubt it. Thune kind of threw the SAVE Act underneath. The only thing we have left is the critical infrastructure option, which I put out there. That's the only thing that's technically left to have an attempt to correct the equation. I'm not sure that that's going to happen because I know on the inside, all kinds of people are telling President Trump he can't do it. And I'll give you a prime example. People are writing in Grok, hey, can President Trump cancel the voter rolls or whatever and not make a use? And Grok saying, no, that's not possible. Well, you're asking it wrong. And people are taking that as Grok. It's just as bad as Wikipedia. Grok's the definitive answer. If you want to ask Grok, you have to ask the right question. The first question is are our elections considered part of critical infrastructure? It will come back and tell you yes. You ask it, what part of our elections are deemed critical infrastructure? It will actually detail that for you. You got to ask it in a series of successive questions, okay? And then it's going to tell you it's the roles, it's the databases, it's the machines, it's everything. Okay. And God bless you, loyal patriot. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my God, you did it twice. Thank you for that. God bless you for that. It all goes to keep all of this going with election integrity and evidence for every bit of it. So God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Anyway, so once you ask Grok, what is in elections considered under the critical infrastructure, you're going to see it's databases, voter rolls, software systems, etc. Then you have to ask Grok the right question. If in fact, Grok answered this, if in fact our election systems are suspected to be compromised or suspected to have been compromised by foreign actors or bad actors, by either inflating the voter rolls, manipulating the voter rolls, changing election data, etc., or getting into, nefariously our election systems, does the President of the United States under critical infrastructure have the right to apply new security steps to protect, for example, the midterms? So you have to ask that question. That way, Grok's only as good as you put it in. And you will find out it says, yes, the president has responsibility to protect the midterms. Then you got to go to the next level. The next level is, if it is suspected our voter rolls are compromised, where the compromise is, can the president temporarily suspend the use of the voter rolls, while an investigation is going, but yet making sure all laws are followed and people will still be able to vote, people will still be able to cast a ballot, and he will assure that all laws are followed, etc. It's only an investigation. That's what it is. But when you go in, can the president end the voter rolls and change voting laws? It's going to tell you no, because that's what it is. You have to treat, you're right, you have to treat AI like a child. You have to treat Grok like a witness on the witness stand. And you will get their answers, and we've done them all. You can see it in the article that we posted on Twitter. You can read it all. Here's what I know. From the actions you're seeing today, they will, from the actions you're seeing in Fulton and from the actions you're seeing in Maricopa, it's going to go like this. You're going to see a lot of activity about it. You're going to see a lot of people pushing it back, calling it bullshit. But there's going to be the ongoing investigation. You're going to watch possibly changes not occur, but you're going to see the midterm. And the midterm's not going to go well. All of this is going to heat up. And it's going to be more lawsuits than even the 2020 election had. That is where all of this data is significantly going to come into play. By the president going back and opening the investigation, he gave it a new timeline. You understand that? See, the way the system works is they try to say, well, it was certified and it was done and you can't do anything. Well, you got to go back, and if it's under investigation, it opens the door again. So now, officially, all of this is back again under investigation, which is the key step, right? The key step. Every bit of it is the key step, okay? You've got to be in that investigation process. Now, all these investigations are key because they're getting on the books prior to the midterms, which again is key. But they're presenting new information. And by the way, Peaches, thank you so very much. God bless you folks for supporting our work. You're the only thing that makes it happen, but God bless you. God bless you for it. Thank you so very much. It's you guys that make this happen and keep it going. You know what? And this is a war, and we're all in it. And the war tries to break you down. The war tries to have us give up on protecting these archives and everything it takes. And it's a battle, and they know it. They try to financially wear us out. And you know what? Super Buff, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for your support. Hey, Buff Shaft, meet Peaches. Peaches, you want some Buff Shaft? There you go. I'm making a match. Anyway, thank you, guys. Anyway, in these investigations at the federal level, it restarts a trigger that's needed. We're going to get to the midterms. I think we're going to get our ass handed to us in the midterms. Now, all of it's going to go batshit crazy. It's going to be lawsuit palooza. But because of the moves right now, it's going to be open. And it supersedes a little thing in law called latches that you knew and you didn't do anything about it, therefore you lost the right. Actually, by the system ignoring the paper and all of our new work, they did us a favor because and the fact that we stay in an open audit, it's not latches because we're not done yet. There's so much more we can do, and you can read it on our GoFund now, right? There's so much more we can do and bring to the table that we anticipated in this battle, and that's kind of how it will go. What's going to happen in the House is they're going to bring new impeachment against President Trump. And this time, he's going to be in trouble. They've set it all up, right? They've set it all up. I'll tell you what concerns me. It's the emoluments clause. And what concerns me is President Trump actually took, a $500 million jet from the Qataris? That terrifies me. And in that process, in the House, which is the one that has the power to bring charges, not only are they going to go after President Trump, but every one of us doing this particular type of fight like we're going to do, it's going to be all hell. They're going to come all after all of us. Because they're going to need the talk to stop. Now, I sit in a very kind of interesting seat, personally, with what we do, is if they do that, we get to actually bring even more evidence into the record, which is exactly what they don't want. Right? Now, at the same time this is all going on, I want you to understand all of the guys, it's the machines, buy a pillow, I saved the world, it's the program named after me, about me, because it's about me, named after me, and I want you to remember it's named after me, and I named it after me because I like me, and you should like me, and it's all about me. Well, what's going to happen is there's also a battle inside of who's going to get credit. I don't give a crap. But there's a few powers that be behind the scene that have been, should we say, big promoters, big speakers and media. And these guys are actually in a competition of who's going to get credit for saving the United States. I kid you not. I kid you not. I donated more than this one. No, I donated more than this one. Tristan Cash, thank you so very much for that very generous donation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. So I think there's a lot of people that are working the system from inside the system that want to be able to focus on their particular topics, want to have that come out because it kind of validates them and validates their life and validates them as a hero. Now, that's the ego part of it side, but everybody who's worked in this and helped funded this, I do believe is a hero. But I also believe in many ways, bad USA money, USAID money came into this, and they spread that money out under the guise of conservatives just so they could raise people up so those people, when needed, can destroy other initiatives. I'm watching it go on now. It's nuts. Personally, I'm glad that my team is not part of any other teams. We've been asked, we get asked all the time, and we have refused because our work stands alone on what we do based on the patents that I built and the technologies I built. And so I can tell you, when I try to imagine a day in President Trump's life, his ear is on fire. I'm telling you, President Trump is business. He gets it like that. Boom, 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 boom. You see it. President Trump's the man. But damn it, there are so many people around him bending his ear. Like attorneys saying, you can't do it under critical infrastructure. You can't do this. You can't say the voter rolls are outlawed. And President Trump has to understand the nuances. No, it's a temporary pause for an investigation, which we have rights to do, which, by the way, the Democrats told us that everything was infected by Russia. And we want to make sure that I'm sure they told the truth. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. But you got to remember his eyes has been built over them, is being melted and being beat up, and people come in and write a big check, and he's over here, he's running the world. Come on. And he's left it to people that he believes or he wouldn't have put in, right? And I trust that part of it, but I know he's going through a world of mess because this is a messy thing. we knew about Mike Johnson and Thune before they came in, but yet the system got them in. When we needed them, they weren't there. Country girl, thank you so very much, dear. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that very generous tip for our program. Thank you very much. The system's only out for itself. I told you when I began this, my client, you, it's the public. And we have interest aligned. And I said from the very beginning, you can go back even to those that saw me in 2020 testifying for Senate. I said, I don't give a shit about the machines, and I don't give a shit whether it's Trump or Biden. I only care are our elections run properly, and are the votes counted exactly the way they're cast by every legal voter. Remember its word, all votes must count. Do you think it's any coinkydink that even before the 2020 election, they basically said President Trump wasn't going to count certain people's votes? And then they did this campaign, every vote must count, every vote must count, dead motherfuckers vote must count, illegals from Iraq votes must count. That's what they were saying. That's what the psychological warfare doing. Every vote must count. Because they knew some were going to be thrown out. Well, they just threw out votes. You get it? That's the war we're in. But for me, I have one client, and clients the United States of America, and that's all of us. I care about myself, my children, my grandchildren, future great-grandchildren in the future. We got to do this. I told somebody the other day, you know, we've seen governments come and go. We've seen countries come and go, right? Like Rome fell. Was at the feed store. I was at the feed store getting rutabaga and field seed. Anyway. And I said to the lady, I said, you know, I was kind of crazy about my dad, but I know my dad, my grandpa, and everybody else always thinks in their generations that they're the generation that everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Goddamn rock and roll. And I said, isn't it weird that we might be it? We might really be it. We might really be the generation that this happened to. Or we might be the generation that proved where all other republics barely stood for 200 years, and we're about to hit 250, that we're the generation that said, screw you, we perfected the model, and it's going to last, and we're going to make sure it lasts another 250. We might also be that generation if we get this right. Either way, folks, we're going down in the history books. We're already in the history books because this happened in our watch. We're already in the history books because we've seen all these changes and all this shit go down. Fucking Khomeini's dead. Maduro gone. We're living in historic times. I always told you this, and it's getting more historic. But we're going down in the history books. We're going down in the history books first for fighting for our elections and getting these damn ballots. And getting, for the first time in history, a full forensic audit of a general election. It never happened. Maricopa is the fourth largest county in the United States, second largest voting block of people. And if you look at Hanging Chad's Bush Gore, it was 20,000 ballots or whatever it was, and we did over 2 million. You got to understand, you're in the history books for that. You're in the history books for the pandemic. You're in the history books for all of this shit. But we got two more chances. We're going to be the history books. We either let this happen, or we stood up and said, fuck you. You work for us. And we're going to hold you to account. And that's where we are. But we're that generation. We are living right now what's going to be read about 1,000 years from now. You're in that mix. God chose you to be here. At any other time, you're Papa's little one little guy out of 500 million or a billion hit that one egg. Could have happened at any time in history, but God saw fit to put you here in this fight. So we're all destined together. We're all connected together to do this. From that standpoint, I think God probably chose the right people to be here at the right time. And I don't take that lightly. And I like to think as we approach our 250th anniversary that we're about to shatter all those bullshit records and great things are coming if we can get in sync. I see them happening. But at the core part of it, this one core part of it, is we got to get our elections right. I love you all. I appreciate you all. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for your support. Share this program. We got to hit these numbers and keep these archives safe. I'm going to give you that precious little beautiful gift singing once again on the way out. Share this program. I love you. Thank you.
The page number of the baby car.
How? Bitty, bum bum. Bitty, bum bum. Got that?
What?
Let me sing. Yeah, but that was a long time ago, Daddy. I need some, like, more music. You inform me. Oh, what's love got to do? Got to do with it. What's love but a seconds and emotion? What's love got to do? Got to do with who needs a heart and a heart can be broken?
Our courts are based on clear and convincing evidence. Want convictions? Want justice? For what happened in the 2020 election? Then we need your help. Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. The decision you make in the next few moments could decide whether we ever get our elections fixed or not. Here's why. Trump campaign and allies filed 64 different lawsuits. They all went down in flames. 100% of these cases were presented on It's the Machines, or The Machines Changed the Votes, or The Voting Company Executive Said He Would Make Sure Donald J. Trump Would Not Win. They all went down in flames. Why? You can't bring theories to court as evidence. No supposed Zoom call or six-degree polynomial math theory or census data is or ever will be proof of fraud. You can't bring theories to court as evidence. Here's why. In both civil and criminal law, the side making a claim carries the burden of proof, and prosecutors must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Without physical or otherwise verifiable evidence, a case cannot meet this high threshold. Physical evidence is the key. The question is, did anyone get relevant, reliable, provable, testable, and duplicatable evidence of what really happened in the 2020 general election? And the answer is yes, absolutely. The full forensic audit of Maricopa County, Arizona is the only evidence-gathering work which gathered relevant, reliable, provable, testable, and duplicatable evidence of what really happened in the 2020 general election. Evidence so damning that the system, the deep state, and those who pull the strings of this country have fought to keep it hidden. and have hoped to have it be forgotten to time. Almost $3 million invested in time, funds, and efforts to unlock that which the system wanted hidden. But now, that evidence is in danger of being lost forever. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then we need your help. Please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. With the 2026 midterms coming up, the system is going to try to lame duck President Trump and then most likely introduce new impeachment proceedings. This is the evidence which will help win the war which is surely to come. We need to keep Maricopa County full forensic investigation and archive secure and ongoing. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then we need your help. Please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. We need your help securing the full forensic audit archives. Don't allow the only testable, objective, and reliable 2020 election evidence fall into obscurity. Millions were spent on getting it documented and tested. This is historic evidence. Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. The historic Maricopa County full forensic audit effort processed 20,895,610 digital and forensic images of varying formats, resulted in 208 million individual evidence-proof files. The system processed over 58 billion forensic measurements, resulting in over 2 trillion individual base computations. No hopium, no hype, just hardcore forensic evidence. Please make sure the Maricopa County full forensic audit archives survive. Donate now. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. We can't do it without you. We need you. America needs you. Our future needs you. Please donate now. Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. Please donate now.